Hello, my friends. I hope you're having a swell day. My name is Ezra Anderson, and today we're going to create a fun fish character in Affinity Designer. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this tutorial. It's going to be a lot of fun. The first thing we're going to do is make the fish's body, which we can do by selecting the ellipse tool and then clicking and dragging to make an oval. I'm going to make my body just a little thicker and then give it a nice red color. I think I still want my fish just a little thicker than this. Alright, that looks good. Next we're going to make the fish's tail, which we'll do by making a perfect triangle. You'd think to make a perfect triangle that we would just select the triangle tool, and then while holding down shift, we could click and drag to make a perfect triangle. And in one sense, this is a perfect triangle, in that the width and height are both 519 pixels, but in reality, it's not really a perfect triangle, because that means this width and this height are exactly the same, when really a triangle has a diagonal edge. So to make a true perfect triangle, I'm first going to delete this triangle, and then I'll click and hold on the triangle tool, and then select the polygon tool. Now we can set the number of sides to 3 up in the context toolbar, and while holding down shift, we'll click and drag to make a truly perfect triangle. Now, even though our triangle doesn't look quite right inside of this box, it actually has the exact same length edge on every side. And that's exactly what we want. Now we just need to rotate this triangle 90 degrees, which we can do by clicking and dragging on this rotation handle at the top. To keep your rotation in 15-degree increments, just remember to hold down shift. Then we'll position this triangle at the back of the fish. Next, we're going to round the ends of the fish's tail so they're not so pointy, and to do this, we'll use the corner tool. With this tool, we just need to click on a point, and then we can click and drag to round it. I'm going to press Command or Control Z to undo that though, and then by clicking and dragging, I can select both of these nodes at the same time. Then as I round these corners, it will round them the exact same amount. Alright, I think that's looking good. The next thing we're going to do is make a small cutout at the end of the fish's tail, which we'll do by first making another triangle with the polygon tool. Remember to hold down shift to make it a perfect triangle, and then rotate it 90 degrees. Then we'll stick it at the back of the tail, and maybe make it a little bit smaller. In case your shapes aren't snapping to each other, just make sure that you have snapping turned on up here. Now to cut this little triangle out of the big triangle, I'm going to hold down shift so I can select both of these layers at the same time, and then use the subtract Boolean operation. Then I'm just going to round out this corner a little bit right here using the corner tool. That looks perfect, so now I'll press Command or Control 0 to see the entire document. We're going to make the bottom half of the fish's tail a little bit darker, which we'll do by first selecting the rectangle tool, and then clicking and dragging to make a rectangle, and we'll make this rectangle a darker red. Then to make it so this rectangle is only visible on the fish's tail, we're going to make this rectangle layer a child layer to the fish tail layer. To do this, we'll click and drag on the rectangle down and to the right. Now our rectangle is only being shown on the fish's tail. I'll close up this group by pressing on the triangle, and then we need the fish's tail beneath the fish's body, so I'm going to click and drag on this layer to put it beneath the body. Now we're going to make a fin at the bottom of the fish, which we can do with the rounded rectangle tool. Just click and drag to make a rounded rectangle, and then we can make it extra rounded by clicking and dragging on this orange handle. Then we'll just resize and position it. And our rounded rectangle layer will also need to go beneath the fish's body. Next, we're going to make a fin for the top part of our fish. Once again, we'll click and drag to make a rounded rectangle, and then make it extra rounded by clicking and dragging on the orange handle. This time though, we're going to cut a circle out of this rounded rectangle. So we'll click on the ellipse tool, and while holding down Shift, we'll click and drag to make a circle. Then we'll reposition this circle. And now to cut this circle out of the rounded rectangle, I'll hold down Shift so I can select both of the layers. And then I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and press on the subtract Boolean operation. What this has done is create a compound group down here in the Layers panel. Now we still have our circle and rounded rectangle and can move them independently. I'm going to select the circle and reposition it. I think it would look better as an oval, so I'm going to make it a little bit wider. When you're satisfied with how your compound group is looking and you want to make it into one shape, you can select the compound group in the Layers panel, and then with the Move tool selected, you can press on Convert to Curves in the context toolbar. Now that we've converted it to curves, we can use the Corner tool to round out these edges. Then with the Move tool, we can resize and position our fin. I think our fish is already looking very good, and it's only going to look better as we add the eye. To make the eye, we'll select the Ellipse tool, and then while holding down Shift, we'll click and drag to make a perfect circle. Then we'll reposition this circle, and perhaps make it a little smaller. Then we're going to duplicate this circle by pressing Command or Control J. We're going to make this circle white, and shrink it by clicking and dragging on this handle down here. To keep it as a perfect circle, you'll need to hold down Shift, and if you want to resize it equally from all directions, you can also hold down Command or Control. Now I'll duplicate this circle by pressing Command or Control J, and make this circle a very dark brown. I'm going to make this circle smaller and reposition it. Then I'll make two white circles in the center of the pupil to add a little bit of shine to the fish's eye. To see how everything is looking, I'm going to zoom back out by pressing Command or Control 0. I think our eye is looking great, so I'm going to select all of these circles and then put them inside of a group by pressing Command or Control G. If you want to change where the fish is looking, you can press V for the Move tool, and then rotate this entire group by clicking and dragging on this handle at the top. I'm going to keep my fish looking upwards though. Next, we're going to give our fish a mouth, which we'll do by using a rounded rectangle. Let's zoom in a little bit, and then click and drag to make a rounded rectangle. And once again, we'll use this orange handle to make it extra rounded. I'll make mine a little bit smaller, and then position it in the center of the fish's body. To cut this rounded rectangle out of the fish's body, we'll need to have both of the layers selected. We already have the rounded rectangle selected, and if we hold down Command or Control, we can also select the body inside the Layers panel. Then we just need to come up to the top and use the subtract Boolean operation. At this point, it looks like our fish's eye has disappeared, but really the eye is just underneath right now, so we can just click and drag to bring that group back up to the top. Just as we've done before, I'm going to select the Corner tool, and then click and drag to select both of these nodes, and round them out a little bit. And if you want to give your fish a little bit of an underbite or overbite, you can select the Node tool, and then if you click on the fish's body, you can select one of those nodes and move it. You'll be able to move this node in a straight line if you hold down Shift while you're clicking and dragging. Now I'll zoom back out so we can see the entire fish, and we'll add a shadow going along the bottom half of the fish by using the Rectangle tool. So we'll click and drag to make a rectangle, and then to make it so it's only visible on the fish's body, we'll make it a child layer by dragging it down and to the right. Then we'll make this rectangle a dark red. To clean up our layers panel a little bit, I'm going to select all of these layers, and then put them inside of a group by pressing Command or Control G. Our fish is just about done, but we're going to give him a few finishing touches to make him even cuter. Let's give him some spots by selecting the ellipse tool, and then while holding down Shift, we'll click and drag to make a circle. Then we can make this circle a dark brown and lower its opacity so it's not quite so visible. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I still think that spot is a little too visible, so I'm going to lower its opacity to 10%. Then I'll come up here and select the Move tool, and I'll duplicate the circle a few times by pressing Command or Control J. Then I'll resize and position these duplicate circles to add more spots to our fish. You can continue this process to add more spots. Then I'm going to put all of these spots in a group by selecting them in the Layers panel, and then pressing Command or Control G. If you want to make the spots even less visible, you can lower the opacity of the entire group, or if you want to make them more visible, you can duplicate the group by pressing Command or Control J. I like the way mine are looking though, so I'm going to keep them as they are, and then zoom back out by pressing Command or Control 0. Then I'm going to put both of these groups inside of a group so our entire fish is inside of one group. Then I'll just make our fish a little bit smaller. Finally, we're going to put the fish under some water and add a couple of bubbles. To add the water, we'll select the Rectangle tool and just click and drag to make a rectangle. Then we'll put this rectangle underneath the fish layer and lock it so we don't accidentally move it by pressing on the lock icon. Then we can make it a nice shade of blue. Finally, we'll add the bubbles. To do this, we'll select the Ellipse tool, and while holding down Shift, we'll click and drag to make a circle. And we'll make this circle a light shade of blue, nearly white. Then I'm going to zoom into the bubble a little bit. And to add some shine to the bubble, we'll use the Donut tool. To select the Donut tool, click and hold on the Polygon tool, and then select Donut tool. Then we'll click and drag to make a donut. And then we can change its start and end position by clicking and dragging on one of these orange handles. And we can also make it a little bit thinner by using this orange handle here. Then I'm going to rotate the entire shape and make it a little bit smaller. Then I'm going to make it white and position it on the circle. I want to round the corners of this donut, and to do that we'll need to use the Corner tool, but before we can use the Corner tool, we need to convert this donut into curves. To do this, we'll come up to the Context toolbar and press on this icon, and then select Convert to Curves. Then we'll round off the edges as we've been doing before with the Corner tool. Now we'll put our donut and circle inside of a group and zoom back out. Then just as we did with the spots, I'm going to duplicate this a few times and resize and position the bubbles using the Move tool. Then I'm going to put all of these bubbles inside of a group. And if you want, you can put the bubbles and fish inside of another group. Then we'll zoom back out and resize and position our fish. And there you have it. That's how you make a cute fish in Affinity Designer. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to check out our complete beginner's guide to Affinity Designer in the video description, where we learn even more tools and techniques so you can create beautiful artwork in Affinity Designer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Affinity Revolution tutorial.